Hi everybody, it's me, Willow, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm here with another fun video for all of you guys to enjoy. Today we will be breaking down episode 8 of season 1 of The Testaments. Last week I said this was the penultimate episode. I'm actually incorrect. I thought there was 9 episodes this season, but we're lucky. We're getting 10. So next week's actually going to be the penultimate, but I still felt like this was a pretty strong episode. We get a lot of different dark type of reveals and a lot of like kind of wariness for a lot of our characters going into the final 2 episodes. So I thought this was a much stronger episode compared to last week, just a lot more reveals. But before we dive into this breakdown for episode 8, make sure you are subscribed and have post notifications turned on so you don't miss out on any of my future Testament reviews. I'm also covering Euphoria season 3 right now if you're watching that, and I also do film reviews very often on my YouTube channel as well as pop culture content. So make sure you're a subscriber and also follow me on all the major social media accounts. I'm on Letterboxd, Instagram, TikTok, Serialized, the Awards Expert app, all at Willow D Steele. So give me a follow on those platforms. Thank you so much for your guys' support. Let's dive into episode 8 of The Testaments. We started off with a little needle drop of Sweet Jane by Cowboy Junkies, and I just felt like this was a perfect way of kind of segueing into this episode, specifically with the fantasy scenes, which I thought were just so beautifully shot. They're in the scene where they have like their prom, with like the little balcony. Like, I love that set piece. I feel like they're getting a lot of use out of it this season, which I enjoy. I like seeing recurring sets, and I think the whole wood interior is very gorgeous, and obviously it's kind of resembling of like maybe like a historical building or something like that, resembling back to the old. It's very like old architecture, it's not like modern. So I think it's very interesting that Agnes is having her fantasy in this setting, and she's fantasizing her life with Garth, and they're dancing together and they're all happy. And then Bekah steps in because it's revealed that Paula let it slip that Bekah and Garth are officially engaged and they're going to be getting married. And poor Agnes is just having to kind of push through this pain of having this love and infatuation for Garth, but not being allowed to choose. And she feels like she can't be mad at Bekah because she didn't have the right to choose. None of them did. So I thought that whole scene was very beautiful, with Bekah stepping in the wedding gown, and like this kind of love triangle happening. But obviously Bekah is only going with Garth because he's the best option out of all of the commanders that she was given. And I feel like, of course, Agnes knows that deep down, but she wanted him. That's why she suggested him to Aunt Lydia in the first place. So all the engagements are really starting to build up. We have all the girls, having their commanders be picked for them, and Agnes is officially engaged to Commander Weston, and she breaks the plate. They all get to like break a plate at the beginning of their engagement, and by like the wedding night, they have to have it all back together. So Agnes's goal is to piece all of these pieces back together. I do believe this is a Japanese ritual. I might be incorrect, but I think it's supposed to be about like the pain and the energy and the beauty of putting the piece back together after it's been broken. So I do like the symbolic nature of it, but I just feel like it's so icky and gross that she again, has to pick up all these pieces in front of all these grown adults. She's the youngest, and this is proving that she is going to be an adult. She's allowed to be a wife. It's just feels very icky to me. We have the copulation class, I think that's how they pronounced it, which is basically the birds and the bees class, and Shu and Daisy are not allowed to go, because they haven't had their menstruation yet. So Shu and Daisy kind of go on their own, and Daisy's asking, do you know what happened to Talia? What are the eyes going to do with her? She was saying, well, if the eyes took her, obviously she did something bad. And it's basically revealed, yeah, Talia is not coming back. They probably you know, killed her or they're torturing her or she's in the colonies somewhere, because obviously Mayday has done quite a bit of damage as we get more revealed later in the episode. But I wanted to talk about the copulation class and just how horrifying it is, honestly. Like, these girls are waiting for this moment their whole lives to kind of get the ins and outs of what it's going to be like with their husbands, how they're going to have children. They are completely naive, don't know any of this knowledge. Like, of course they haven't gone to any really formal education, they just go to the aunt's school. Like, even the younger girls in the society have even lesser education than the Plums have, because they come from more prominent houses in Gilead. So it's just very, very horrible to see Aunt Vidalia just being so cruel, and it's as if she is like like peeved and annoyed that she has to explain this to the girls, and she doesn't explain anything. She says your husbands will instruct you, and is basically leading this class with fear and saying that these girls must remain meek and their husband will guide their hand through wifehood, and they must obey their husband like they would obey God. And I just feel like this is literally like abstinence class, preached 100% in school. Just that lack of knowledge of any actual form of sex ed and what you should actually be aware of before your wedding night. Like, it's just really setting these girls up for failure to be basically assaulted by these men on their wedding night. It's just horrific, in my opinion. We go back to Daisy and Shu, and it's revealed that Daisy gets her period, which was kind of bigly hinted at last week with Rita and Daisy kind of talking about how none of the girls get their period in Toronto and she hadn't gotten it either. And that was one of the big reasons why they decided to send her in Gilead, because they thought she would be safe from the plum and green ritual of being married off basically the moment that you get your menstruation. So I'm very worried about Daisy, because now it seems like this is a ticking time bomb. Luckily, Shu does see this, but it seems like she's keeping it under wrap for now. Seems like she's going to be a good confidant because she doesn't want to be like the last infertile girl in their little group. So, fingers crossed she's able to keep it under wrap, but obviously this is a big deal because she's going to be bleeding through her clothes, and I feel like the aunts are eventually going to catch this. So very nerve-wracking about that, because she does end up telling Garth, and she's asking Garth, I need like supplies, like tampons, stuff that I can flush down the toilet, which I'm also worried about. Like, what if she gets tampons, she flushes down the toilet, and then they have some sort of plumbing issue, and then it gets revealed that way? Like, that would be horrible. Great PSA to not flush your period products down the toilet. And she also ends up revealing it to Agnes, because Shu tells Agnes, and then Agnes is able to give Daisy some pads. So yeah, obviously quite a few different people know, so I am very worried for this ticking time bomb of when the aunts are going to find out that she has her menstruation, that she's blessed by the fruit, and hopefully, this timeline of marrying the girls off passes enough, and maybe Daisy will be in the clear, but you never know. Another really horrible thing, but prominent subject matter for this episode, is Hulda reveals that when she went and got her teeth cleaned from Dr. Grove, that he assaulted her during the appointment. He took her hand, and Hulda didn't know what to do, and he pressed it against his body. So, like, I wasn't 100% sure what she was implying. I thought maybe like to his genitals, but I feel like that wasn't necessarily clear. Maybe he was just trying to test the waters and he just pressed it to her chest, because obviously any sort of touch with these girls that's not to their betrothed is sinful, it's tempting, and poor Hulda just feels like she is completely in the wrong and that she's going to go to hell. And Agnes, who's also had this happen to her and's been keeping it inside because she had no sort of formal proof because she was under anesthesia when this happened, she is trying to encourage Hulda to tell the aunts, and that she shouldn't lie to herself and that this truly happened. And this entire time, Agnes has been kind of fearful that maybe this actually didn't happen and that she's been kind of, telling herself this false truth. But with Huldah revealing, it gives Agnes even more confirmation that what Dr. Grove did to her actually did happen. So this is all culminating as Aunt Lydia starts to announce the betrothal. So we get to hear all the girls' different commanders and their matches. We hear poor Miriam gets selected to be a match with one of the colony commanders. We do get revealed that it's not a toxic waste colony, but an agricultural colony. So one of the better colonies, but her poor mother has not come out of her room in days, and I just feel so bad for Miriam. Flippin' Paula, man, just set her up to fail. Like, this is just tragic. I just feel so bad for Miriam because she was such like a good girl, did everything right, was trying to be completely perfect like she was supposed to be. And that one tiny little slip up because of Paula, now she's off to the colonies. She'll be so far away from her family and more prone to these illnesses and might, you know, have miscarriages or lose stillbirth, stuff like that, because she could be affected. So yeah, very, very worrisome. And I thought this one line that Shu says when she's looking at all the girls who are, very, sunken faced, none of them look happy after their patrol's been announced. She said, "We did it." And I'm just thinking, but like at what cost? None of these girls look happy. None of them seem satisfied. Poor Huldah and Agnes are suffering from becoming women and having to face these horrible reality of these predatory men. It's just very, very sad to see these girls going through this. And also seeing Bekah going through this like tumultuous time of trying to understand her place in Gilead when she, last week was saying she wants to jump off a cliff, and it's revealed that her parents let her pick which commander she wanted to be with, and she picked Garth for obvious reasons. He's, probably the most good looking, most attractive to her out of her two other options, who are much, much older, basically her senior, and one of them was very predatory and got her drunk, which is probably what he would do during their marriage. So it makes sense that she picks Garth, but this is putting a wedge between her and Agnes, which is poor Agnes is going through cake and flower picking with Weston, and compared to Bala, he seems like a saint. And I feel like Agnes is getting this false reality that maybe she'll get a little bit more independence, she'll feel a little bit more free, she'll get to be this adult and make decisions for her home when she's with Weston and not have Paula lingering over her and just sniping on her left, right, and center. But I feel like, again, this is a falsehood, and when she actually reaches the wedding night, I just feel like Weston is going to be terrifying. I'm very, very worried about Agnes in this marriage, and it feels like everybody else around her is just so excited that she's with such a high level commander and don't see this threat. So I'm so worried for her. We get more with poor Huldah. It's revealed that she told Aunt Vidalia what happened with Dr. Grove. We bring Agnes in, and we're basically just victim blaming Huldah and telling her that she did not remember this correctly and trying to tell Agnes that none of this was true. And poor Huldah is just sitting there, just feeling so much shame and just feeling like this is all her fault. And Agnes is trying to comfort her, telling her to focus on her engagement and that she's going to have a beautiful life and that she knows that she is strong and courageous and everything will be okay for her in the future. And Huldah can just not even believe it. So it's very, very sad to see these girls being broken away from this horrible place and the realities that they have not been prepared for by the aunts. None of these girls are being protected. And when Agnes confides in Aunt Lydia later and tells her that Huldah was telling the truth and that she knows she's telling the truth, insinuating that this truth has also happened to her. Poor Aunt Lydia, she sees the reality and you see the horror in her face, but what can she do? She has to kind of pose and say, everything is going to be righteously done at the end and that these men will be dealt with in godly manner, and that girls like Hulda and Agnes in such prestigious marriages will not have to go back to the dentist. And it's just like, okay, we're just going to sweep this under the rug and let girls in not as prestigious families get, assaulted by these predatory men. So I know there is kind of like an underbelly and kind of alluding that something sinister will happen to Dr. Grove eventually, but eventually, like, it's not happening now. Like, how many other girls have been assaulted by Dr. Grove before and after this, when we've told, adults in power who could try and do something, but, you know, the answer tied, their hands are tied so much, right? So it's, yeah, this episode, like I said, it's giving us a lot of information, a lot of different reveals, and I just think it's very horrifying, just showing us how much lack of control any of these girls have in their lives, and they're basically just being groomed and breeded. So it's very, very horrifying. We have the engagement party for Bekah and Garth. It's, a very splendid affair, but all the girls, of course, they are, facing their own horrors, so none of them are really enjoying themselves. It's also revealed that Shu's brother was on the Angel's flight, so he got out. I'm wondering if that one young male child who was in one of the Handmaids episodes, who was in Toronto, who was adjusting poorly to the transition, was maybe her brother. I don't know if that's any sort of connection or if that's just like another random kid who was on the Angels flight, but I do think this is very, very intriguing to hear this information because Shu feels a lot of pressure to be perfect for her family because they have suffered so much of losing, their other child during this war. And of course, there's so many different layers to that, right? Because most likely Shu and her brother are not actually the biological children to her parents in Gilead, but of course there is still like a loving, like, it's very complicated, right? And even that child in The Handmaid's Tale, you see that he was really homesick and he was being traumatized by being separated from the family that he knew, and being freed wasn't necessarily freeing for him because he had been brainwashed and groomed in the system of Gilead his whole life. So very interesting to hear that reveal. And because Shu has been so upset, Daisy kind of tells her the real ins and outs of sex, and she really does just lay it out there, but Shu doesn't believe her. She just thinks it's unbelievable what she's explaining, and I just think that's a great scene to show that these girls really don't have any sort of education, and Daisy and maybe a couple of other Pearl girls are the only ones with any sort of knowledge, and even when they share this knowledge, they aren't believed because it just seems so like out of reality of Gilead that any of this, information could actually be true. So I think I think also like the religious aspect, because Daisy was kind of explaining like the biological cells and how everything gets transferred, from the semen to um the sperm to the egg fertilizing, and that creates the baby. Of course, in Gilead, there's a religious aspect, right? So I don't know if that scientific explanation of fertilizing an egg and stuff would really make sense in this world that is probably like immaculate. Um, or I don't even know, like, they don't even really talk about that, I feel like it is kind of more their own sort of a religion, right? Like, more of like a extremist view than actually a real sort of sensed in the Bible. They just kind of pick and choose. Like, they don't ever really mention, I feel like, Jesus, or they just mention God, So yeah, interesting. I wonder about immaculate conception and the idea of scientific, and I was really thinking about that when Daisy was explaining this to Shu, and just like, the unbelievableness of it. So I was wondering maybe a religious aspect plays into that too. So very interesting. But as the party goes on, we have a little scene with Commander Mackenzie and Agnes. And again, he's talking about the science and saying that they have to go with the science of marrying the girls off young, even though it seems like he is a little bit uncomfortable with marrying them very young. Seems like he does have like a good relationship with his daughter and he loves Agnes, and seeing her get married off is very young. But due to the birth rates, they need to marry them off young so they can be the most fertile, is basically his justification. So, ew, I don't love that. He's definitely, I feel like he's probably one of the commanders to worry the least about, but he still is kind of like one of those like yes men, like he just goes along with it and he doesn't try to make anything better. He doesn't try and stop this horrific child marriages that are happening. So I found that to be a very interesting scene too, because I love getting to break down Commander Mackenzie, because I feel like he really sticks out, like I said, to be one of the more lenient commanders who maybe is not as full on into the Gilead world. And I don't know, maybe it's because Paula is a little bit more forthcoming with it. She wants to get a handmaiden basically the moment that Agnes is married off so they can have another child to raise. And he seems very off put by that. So I do find him very interesting because he seems like an outlier amongst the commanders. We get Penny back in this episode for just a brief little scene. She comes to the engagement party but leaves early. She looks very unwell. Shu comments that she doesn't think she's washed her hair. I believe this is her third miscarriage that she's gone through, so this is very, very hard for her to go through, and she's probably coming to the terms that maybe she won't be able to carry a baby to full term. And what does that mean for her as a wife? And what does that mean for like the other girls as well? So I do think that was an important scene, even though it was very quick. I do think Penny's fate is going to be very in the balance in the next couple episodes, and I'm intrigued to see what happens with her. I hope nothing bad, because I want nothing bad to happen to these girls. I'm very worried about her, and I feel like them focusing on her first scene was something important, and we shouldn't just like overlook it. Another important part of this episode was that we get a little bit more of a backstory with Garth. We get the reveal of his family here in Gilead, and we see that his father was injured during one of the Boston attacks, and that there was assassination attempt on his life, and he was poisoned, and now he is paralyzed or paraplegic, I believe. And he, like, they don't go into much depth, but he is in like a wheelchair, and it seems like he has some sort of like seizures or fits every once in a while, and they kind of have to take him outside because it's kind of like disturbing the engagement party. And Garth explains that his father was the smartest and most courageous man that he's ever known. He was just fighting on the wrong side. And I feel like this is really starting to put Garth's um motives into perspective. It does seem like he is full Mayday. I was like a little worried in the last couple episodes when it's revealed that he was born and raised in Gilead. I wasn't sure what was going on, like with the whole logistics of that, but it seems like he was in not like a super prominent home, because they do comment that they only see like maybe like two Marthas, and that it's a very small house, so they don't really need that many Marthas, kind of like bashing Bekah for marrying somebody lower than her. So obviously Garth didn't come from like a super prominent family, but his father was still very involved in a lot of the logistics and plannings for the different attacks on May Day, and he was involved in the one on Boston that we heard in last week's episode went very well for May Day, and that there was a lot of lives lost on the Gilead side. But of course, Gilead has just been trying to pose and seem like, May Day has been taken out with a lot of public hangings, trying to continue this propaganda. But it seems that Garth's father is visual evidence that May Day is making some sort of progress. And we have Daisy and Garth talk, and she's saying that she needs to get out of Gilead, that she got her period, she doesn't know what to do, that she's done here. And Garth is saying, "You're not done. You have to stick this out. You said that you wanted to end Gilead. I want to end Gilead. We have to do this together." So there's a lot riding on them, and it's really confirmed that Garth has no idea who June is. It seems like he's just kind of a handler who's here, a contact point, but has not been really involved or informed in a lot of the doings of Mayday. He's just kind of their inside man along with Daisy and maybe a couple other people. So I'm really loving a lot more of the reveals of Garth and his character. I'm excited for him in the next couple episodes. We get a little bit more with Agnes and Daisy confiding in Agnes about her period and the whole like Shu telling her, and she's worried Shu's going to tell other people, but Agnes is basically confirming, no, I don't think anybody's going to tell. Your secrets are safe with us. But can we trust like can we trust her? Like I just it's literally feeling like Chekhov's gun right now, honestly. And we also have Agnes confiding in Daisy about what went down with Dr. Grove and how she told Aunt Lydia, and Aunt Lydia isn't going to do anything. And I thought it was really beautiful that they had this moment between them as friends, hugging and seeing that they really are trapped in this world. And even if they do the right thing and tell an adult, they are basically told to suck it up and there's nothing that can happen for them. And I think this line, even though it's really simple, I thought it was beautiful. Daisy tells Agnes, "I'm really glad you told me." And I think that's great because Agnes has been holding it in for like 3 or 4 episodes now. And it's obviously been weighing on her a lot mentally. So having her finally tell somebody who acknowledges that it happened to her and that it wasn't okay and it's not her fault, it's his fault, I thought that was really important for Agnes to hear, especially after what went down with Hulda and Aunt Vidalia and also Aunt Lydia, and how nobody is trying to protect these girls during this dangerous situation. So, yeah, a very, very, very intense episode. Lots has been revealed, and it's making me very excited for the last 2 episodes of The Testament Season 1. If you guys watched the episode, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. I feel like things are really starting to heat up with this first season of this series. I'm really enjoying it, even though it is difficult to watch and see these girls go through such a complicated and honestly just like terrifying world. It is very intriguing to see all these characters be revealed and have a little bit more understanding about their backstory and what's leading them to this moment. I do think Aunt Lydia is collecting information. She's writing all of this stuff down. Once, Agnes has like confirmed that this has happened to both her and Hulda, I'm sure Aunt Lydia is writing all of this about Dr. Grove down and that she is going to do something about it. And that is kind of confirmed in the narration, which is obviously taking place in the future with Agnes. So I know, things are probably going to happen to these commanders in the future, but right now, they're being treated like kings and I can't stand it. So, yeah, let me know what you guys think about the episode and the season so far down below. Next week is actually the penultimate episode, so I can't believe we only have 2 episodes left of this season, and we're probably going to have some weddings next week. I feel like Bekah and Garth will probably get married next week, and that will be a big thing for all of our girls to have this wedding, especially with the love triangle going forward. So give me your predictions for the last 2 episodes. I'd love to have your theories down below. Also, make sure you are subscribed and have post notifications turned on so you don't miss out on my last 2 reviews for The Testament Season 1. And so you don't miss out on any of my content going forward. I cover TVs and movies and pop culture content, festivals. Cannes is about to begin. I'm also doing awards predictions all year long, so make sure you're following. I'm also at Willow D Steele on all the major social media platforms. You can follow me on Serialized, Letterboxd, the Awards Expert app, TikTok, and Instagram. So give me a follow and engage with me on all my different platforms. All of your support really helps to push me out into the algorithm so I can meet other like-minded folks like you guys and help grow my cinema loving community. So thank you so much for all your love and support. I'm so grateful for all of the new followers that I'm getting throughout the Testament season. So thank you guys so much. And until my next video, remember to keep getting lost in cinema. Bye.